Hello, what is up? In this video today, we are going to be talking about how to sell more authentically, how to enroll more clients without using those manipulative, sleazy tactics that you think of when you think of sales. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jana Niksa. I am the authentic sales coach. I spent over 20 years in the medical sales industry. And what I can tell you is the traditional sales approach that most people teach is broken. And if you're a heart-centered entrepreneur, if you're a consciously evolved entrepreneur, if you're somebody that values things like authenticity and alignment, then you probably know that that traditional approach does not uh, align with you, right? It feels icky, it feels sleazy, it feels manipulative, right? And chances are too that maybe you've been in those programs where they've told you to do things and it just didn't feel right. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, we do have to learn to sell. We do have to market and sell our products, but the good news is there is a different way to do it. So you don't have to play those sort of games. You shouldn't have to force, convince, or push anyone into working with you. And I'm going to talk to you about how to do that today. How does that sound? Okay, so let's talk about what is authentic sales. Authentic sales, for really the best way to put it, is it's more of a consciously evolved, heart-centered way to sell. And while those are a lot of just bigger words put together, what does it actually mean? Is really and truly having a very soul aligned and impactful conversation with your ideal client, and actually doing a lot of listening and a far less talking than you would probably think. But we won't get into that so much for now. What I really wanted to talk about is the energetics of it all and why it works. So, as I was saying before, the traditional approach, the approach that most people think of sales, they think of that manipulative, convincing, forceful energy. And having spent so much time over in the sales world, and after 40,000 sales calls and millions of dollars closed, you guys, I'm here to tell you, you can absolutely do it another way. And it's actually far more effective. Why more people aren't teaching this is beyond me. But the bottom line is you do not have to compromise your integrity in order to help the people you are meant to help. So I'm going to say that again. If you've ever felt like misaligned or this doesn't feel good or I don't want to have to do this in order to get clients, you absolutely do not have to compromise your integrity in order to serve the people you are meant to serve. Okay. So let me break this down energetically as to why this works. So, for those of you that know me, you know that I love to mix the woo and the do. And there's nothing I like more in my science brain and then my spiritual heart is when these two pieces merge, because it just makes for such a truth in my body with a capital T that I don't even know how else to put it. And would be one of those things, and that is the Hawkins scale. So chances are you've probably seen this. Chances are not, you probably never heard anybody talk about the Hawkins scale as it relates to authentic sales versus traditional sales. But this is going to blow your mind. Okay. So if we know, like if you look at A Course in Miracles, or if you look at the work of, David Bayer comes to mind, but so many different people, so many different bodies of work are going to tell you that there's really and truly two states of being. You're either in fear or you're in love, right? You're either in your small self and your ego, or you're in that expanded higher self, right? You are either in your brain thinking and overanalyzing and getting and talking to that inner critic, right? Or you're more in your heart space. And so what this beautiful Hawkins scale does is it sort of it draws a line of neutrality through this measuring the frequency and vibration of different emotions. And what you can see is as you move up in frequency, and I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise, the higher the vibration, the higher the emotion and the feeling associated with it. Okay. And so, of course, here at the bottom, you have things like shame, guilt. This is the suffering piece, right? And it also aligns with the chakras as well, which is really interesting. But, as you move up, you can see, even fear, even desire. Because if anybody's done that whole manifesting thing, like sometimes we desire something so much, we get so attached that it's just covered up in fear, right? And so I think of desire in this case as like that attachment. And you think of pride and, the lower vibration of pride. There's nothing wrong with being proud and loving yourself in those pieces, but it's all in like how you go about doing it. Okay. And so when you get to this midpoint, right, you have the point of neutrality. And then above this line, and I'm going to break down above and below the line and how this relates to sales in just a second. You have all of these different vibrations like love, joy, peace, and then, of course, ultimate enlightenment is there at the top. And then, little known fact, that something that vibrates at 200 points above love is authenticity, which is always just so incredible to me. So, total sidebar for those of you that know me, we take some like side turns here and there. And one of those is in my personal opinion and in my experience, if there's anybody out there that's like, what is the purpose? One of our very, very most fundamental purposes of life is to be who we came here to be. And so it's no surprise to me that authenticity vibrates really just off the chart, right? And so now you're thinking, okay, Jana, so I get it. Like there's these different measures of your vibration because, of course, everything is energy, right? At its most fundamental piece. And so we're all different vibrations of that energy. And you're understanding that as we go up in vibration, like that's high vibe, that's low vibe, you're starting to see this correlation, hopefully. Now, when you think of the older sales model, right? The one that most people still teach, it is in the force, right? It's in fear. They operate with FOMO. They do things like manipulate your desires, right? They do things even like change the tone of their voice so that they can pretend like they actually care about what you're saying as the potential client. And this is a very contracted state, and it's all ego, and it's all in this like overarching vibration of force. It's when we're trying to control everything, we're trying to make it all happen. That's the ego. So what I like to think of is anything below this point neutrality line is that ego. It's the ego running the show. It's fear. It's I'm all attached. I need to make things happen. This is where lack consciousness lives and all of those pieces. And so it comes as no surprise that a lot of the stuff that I'm describing here is very much where 99.999% of sales coaching, sales models, sales trainings live. They're operating in scarcity. They're operating in, what do I have to do? What do I have to say to get the person to do the thing? They've got these sales scripts with these NLP questions that like make people feel like doggy do and shame them if they don't work with you. There's zero trust. There's zero surrender. And frankly, if you're operating in this space, what is the ego all about? Self, right? Now, what I wanted to talk to you about is authentic sales and why this is where things are far more magical. So if you read any of Dr. Hawkins' work, you will know that as you go up in these frequencies, things become less efforting. Things become more magical. Things become less force, more ease. Because of that vibration, you're in more surrender and trust, and you're in less resistance. Okay, so this is not a lesson on manifesting today, but you can see how this applies to manifesting. So like the higher up you go, the more you're in that state of allowance, the more you're in those states of gratitude, the more you're in that frequency of love, the more open you are to receive. Okay. So if that's the backdrop, what is authentic sales? It's living above this point of neutrality. It's actually caring more about the client than you are about whether or not you get the client. It's actually more about serving them. And I know the whole sales as service has been totally hijacked, right? They're like, sales as service, now buy my stuff. I mean, you truly are in service. When the higher up you go here, you realize that we're all one, that we're all connected. And it does you no good to manipulate your way through, that it's actually better to serve and love your way through the process. And naturally, people are going to be attracted to your energy. People are going to want to lean in because you're no longer attached. You're out of that ego, doer, control. And in practicing non-attachment, people are naturally going to flock more to you, right? You're vibrating at the level of authenticity. That alone just flocks, attracts, magnetizes people to you, because like I said before, if that's our purpose, like one of our most fundamental purposes in life is to come and be who we came here to be, to realize our full potential and to truly vibrate at the frequency of who we are, at our soul frequency, then of course naturally people are going to be attracted to that, because they're going to be like, they're going to know somewhere deep down that that is what I want. Why? Because that's fundamentally what we all want. We all want to be who we are. We all want to be loved for who we are, and we want to love ourselves for who we are. So it comes as no surprise that as you operate in these higher levels, it doesn't feel as much efforting. You don't have to convince and push and manipulate. And I would venture to say anybody you have to do that with is not going to be your ideal client. And I think you know that too, deep down. The more you have to push, the more you have to convince, the more fear somebody's in, the less just results they're going to get. That's just how it works, right? So, as you're operating in the authentic sales model, this is where you start to see the magic happen. This is where it doesn't become about what you say or your tone or how you inflect certain pieces and questions. It becomes about who you are and who you're being during that, webinar, that workshop, or that one-on-one conversation. And so, a big foundation of what I teach is all about, how do I do that, Jana? Like, how do I stay in non-attachment? How do I stay open-hearted? How do I make it and continue to make it about them? And how do I keep my ego out of the sales conversation? I just got back from a 2-day event I had here in Atlanta with one of my group coaching programs. And this was a big piece. We spent a lot of time here. And, the key takeaways were really all about, they can totally see how you can have these conversations with far more freedom, far more self-trust and surrender, and how they see now, because even if you think about conversations you've had where people have been more up in this space, just how much safer you felt, how much more authenticity you felt, how much more connection you felt. It just all like felt like more of a vibrational match, right? And so as we walked through that authentic sales model, they were given examples and tricks and different ways to really stay in this piece, in this place, when having those sales conversations. And this whole thing, this doesn't just work for that. Like, this works. I was telling them, I used to be afraid to do public speaking. It actually scared the crap out of me. And even though I've done quite a bit virtually, I've really just started this year getting on more physical stages. And because I know how to manage my fear, because I know how to manage my ego, because I know how to be in my power when I'm on stage, I really don't have a lot of that fear and anxiety that I used to have. It used to be crippling for me. At one point back in college, I actually had to walk off a stage when I was defending my honors thesis because I was shaking so bad and crying that that I just couldn't go through with it. And so I wanted to come on and create this video and really break down that most everything you know or think you know about sales lives here. And that's why. So if you needed permission to be like, I'm not going to sell that way, I am not going to do it, you don't have to. You don't have to live there. There's an entirely different way to do this. And, just so happens that it's really just, I haven't heard anybody talk about it in this way, but, it's really more for those consciously evolved people that are understanding and picking up what I'm laying down. So if that's you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if you want to understand more about the how of this, now that you understand more of the why and what it looks like and the what, I'm happy to create a video on it. So just drop me a comment below and say, I want to know the how, and I will start to show you and break down some of the stuff I was teaching at my event this last week. And so that you can start to put these things into practice for yourself, so that you can start really seeing how much more effortless sales can be when you know how to allow, when you know how to surrender, when you know how to truly make it about the other person and not about you. So let me know what you think. And I'd also love to know any other questions you have about this. Please drop them below, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much for watching.